Hi, everybody. It's Jeff Joyner with Crashing the Pearly Gates. Very happy to be joined today by Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register. How are you doing today, Jeff?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty well, man. I mean, the season starts tomorrow. This is what we've been waiting for, right?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing all the new rules and how all that plays out. And obviously, another year of Otani should be pretty entertaining for the Angels.
Nice. And I wrapped up your Otani book over the off season. I was kind of baseball inundated when it came out. So I'm glad to see that the book is doing well. I'll link the book for those of you guys who haven't bought it yet, but it's definitely worth a read. How has your experience as an author been over the last few months?
Well, it's great. I went to Japan in November and sold a lot of books over there and signed books for people and talked to a lot of fans in Japan. And it was really exciting and certainly hoping people still buy it here too. I think there's probably a lot more people interested in Otani since the WBC. So people want to catch up on how he got here and what he did to become the superstar. I think that the book should be interesting to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, did you see those numbers for the ratings over in Japan? It's been like 96% of all their TVs were tuned into that Otani Trout at bat.
Yeah, we got to get 96% of them to buy the book.
That would be great. But then you wouldn't come on here anymore, man. You'd be cruising around on your yacht all day, right?
Oh, I would still come on for you.
All right, perfect.
I would do the show from my yacht.
Oh,
So,
that would be awesome.
yeah.
Definitely officially a friend of the site, Jeff Fletcher, joining us today. So, speaking of the new rules in the World Baseball Classic, did you make it out to Phoenix for any spring training games or to go to any of the games with the Classic?
Well, I mean, I was there for Angel spring training the whole time, so I did go to two of the WBC games in Phoenix, and they were entertaining. The fan experience was not great, I would say, at Chase Field because I think they were not really prepared for that number of people, so they were kind of understaffed. But the games were entertaining.
Man, I should have texted you. Yeah, I was out there. I went to Mexico versus Colombia and USA versus Great Britain. And yeah, the lines to get into the venue
Yeah,
were ridiculous.
yeah. I was at
It
the
was,
USA Great Britain one. Yeah, and that was like the first night, so they were really kind of circus.
yeah, and I think the afternoon game, there was an issue with scanning in the apps as well. So far, how are you liking the new rules? I'm loving them, but I know there is some pushback from other people.
I mean, I love the pitch clock. I think it. You realize, with games being 25 minutes shorter, and they're not really taking any of the baseball out. So what was happening in that 25 minutes? Nothing. It was just guys like walking around and kicking in the dirt and adjusting their batting gloves, and it's just like we didn't need any of that. So it's nice to have that all gone. As for the other rules, I don't think they're going to have a huge difference. I mean, the shift restrictions I don't think are going to change dramatically. We're going to just get some different hits that we didn't get before, but now there's going to be some different outs that we didn't get before. So I don't think it's going to change the game too much. And the size of the bases, I certainly don't think are going to make a big difference in stolen bases, but I do like the clock.
Yeah, I love the clock. I think they said down in the minor leagues, the shift created an extra hit about every other game when it all worked out. And based on my completely unscientific watching of spring training, it seems to me I'm going about once every other game. Oh, that was an out last year. But yeah, you're right. So while you were out of spring training, well, let's back this up. Last time we talked, Arte Moreno was selling the Angels. We were planning on a super slow off season, and we figured the team making opening day would be kind of a collection of 1 year deals and low payroll and all that stuff. Uh, could not have been more wrong, right? So, where were you when you heard Arte was holding onto the team, and how surprising was that news for you?
Yeah, it was very surprising. I mean, obviously the Angels are a valuable commodity, and I didn't think there would be any issue with him getting a lot of money for the team. Now, if he had some unrealistic expectations, like he wanted 3.5 billion or something like that, then maybe he could have pulled him off because of that. But I don't believe that. I think that there were probably offers, and he says there were offers for upwards of 3 billion. So I think he just changed his mind. I think he just really likes owning a baseball team. It's like the coolest toy any guy can have. And I think that he didn't want to not have it anymore. So I think that's just what happened.
Nice. And we're sitting at a record payroll, including the first multi-year deal for a pitcher in seemingly ever. So,
Starting pitcher, yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
it part of me wonders if, going out of the game, with just a history of losing is part of the reason why he came back. Um,
I mean, I
who
think
knows?
he wants to win the World Series, is what he says. And obviously he's gonna have to do some different things to get there. And I don't think it's necessarily just spending more money. I think it's partly putting more into the minor leagues and the infrastructure and the staffing at all those other kind of levels. And part of it is just letting the baseball people do their thing and not interfering with them. So it remains to be seen if all that's going to be different going forward. But
Yeah.
certainly they are going to have to do some things differently if they want to win.
So he actually spoke to the media for the first time in a few years, and I know you were at that press conference. So um, one of the main reasons I love following you is because you give the facts. You're not Mr. Hot Take, so I'm not going to try to get you to jump into Artie's brain too much. But were there any chuckles when he said it was a vocal minority who wanted him to sell the team?
Well, here's my response to that is I think that the people that are in kind of my circle and your circle are all Angels fans, And I think that those fans, probably the majority of them, wanted to see new ownership. But to Artie, there's this whole other circle of people that I don't interact with and you don't interact with, and they are just basically Angels customers, is what I call them. And they're people that go to games because it's good entertainment. They like to go, and it's a fun thing to do in the summer, and they like when there's fireworks, and they don't really care how good the team is. And I think that to him, those are legitimate people that he's are part of his business, and they probably don't have any issues with him. So I think that's his perspective on it.
You know what? That's a cool perspective. I hadn't considered that. So now let's go back into a little more on the press conference and we can move on. So, as you said, yes, investing in minor leagues, investing in things like that, critically important. So, on the one hand, Artie said he wanted to go get Trey Turner. And then on the other hand, he said, but Perry told me that we needed to get a bunch of players. So I got a bunch of players. I mean, to me, that seems like a sign that he's actually letting the baseball people do the baseball things. I mean, how did you kind of just interpret the general tone of the press
Yeah.
conference?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that if he wanted to do something like Trey Turner and Perry told him, we need to do something else that will be better, and then he said, okay, we'll go with your plan. That's a good sign. If that was, what they wanted to do. I actually joked after I already said that. I said, well, you could have just got Trey Turner and a bunch of all these other guys and had all of it. But
Thank you.
everybody kind of laughed at that, and it was like, oh well, that would be like a $260 million payroll instead of 220 million. But anyway,
Yeah,
I do see that if Artie is really going to let the baseball people do their thing, then that is a better path.
definitely. Maybe he'll go old man Illich and just go insane like the Tigers did for a few years. I know they didn't actually win one, but I mean, I would take a 5-year run like the Tigers had there towards the end of Illich's life all day, every day. I mean, anything can happen in a best of 7 game series. If Marco Scutaro somehow didn't turn into Babe Ruth and Willie Mays's offspring for a week, the Tigers, they win one. It just crazy
Yeah.
things could happen. So let's get forward to 2023. I'll go ahead and ask you all the questions that we have up in our prediction post. Number one, how many games do you think the Angels win? And the only question that really matters, do we make the playoffs this year?
Well, I would say that they're kind of over under for me, sort of their median outcome is like about 85 wins. But I've been predicting that they'll do a little better than that, just because I'm thinking that one of these years they're due to have like a few more things go right than wrong, and push that up to like 89, which I think does get them into the playoffs. So I'll say they win about 89 games and make the wild card.
All right. So Jeff Fletcher basically copied Jeff Joyner's answer without seeing it. I said, we're probably an 85 win team, but I personally think some of the trash panda bullpen comes up and makes an impact in the second half and pushes us to 88 wins and the wild card. Does an Angel win MVP?
I mean, at the beginning of the year, you start with Shohei Ohtani as the MVP favorite. So until somebody else does something incredible like Aaron Judge did last year, you go with Ohtani as your default. So
What's crazy?
That's who I picked.
For a decade solid, the Angels have opened the season with the odds-on MVP winner. It's just gone from Trout to Ohtani. That's pretty ridiculous that we've had that. Okay, does an Angel win Comeback Player of the Year award?
Well, obviously Anthony Rendon is the candidate for that, but that's hard to predict.
David Fletcher is a candidate for that. Griffin Canning is a candidate for that.
I think
Not
you
to
have
the same
to
degree as Rendon.
previously been like more established star level generally
True.
to win that. So those guys could have nice years for sure, but I don't think they would win Comeback Player of the Year. So I'm just going to say no, just because there's too many other people that could be out there. But certainly Rendon, if anybody's going to win it, it's going to be Rendon.
Definitely. Does an Angel receive Rookie of the Year votes at the end of the year?
Rookie of the Year votes?
How many do you put on your ballots? 5 or is it 10?
It's 3 for Rookie of the Year.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought it was 5.
It's 5 for Cy Young and 10 for MVP.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna guess no. I mean, Reed Detmers is not a rookie anymore. He's like the best youngest player, I think.
Yeah.
And he arguably could have got some last year. But then after that, it's like, well, does Ben Joyce come up, and have enough of an impact to get a vote? Maybe. Does Zach Neto make? Oh, you know what? Logan O'Hoppe. Duh, I forgot about Logan O'Hoppe. Yeah, he could definitely get some Rookie of the Year votes for sure.
Cool deal. All right, so we've established the Angels as a wild card. Who do you have as your 3 division winners in the American League?
I got the Astros, White Sox, I believe I took, and Blue Jays.
Wow, dude, that AL Central is tough. I mean, I could argue Chicago's due for a bounce back. Cleveland's got the best pitching. Twins, they're solid. They're not good in any area, but they're not bad in any area. Like
all 3 of those teams could be between like 85 and 90 wins.
Yeah. And all 3 of those teams could also be between like 75 and 80 wins, like with a couple of injuries, it seems.
Yeah.
And then your division winners in the National League, who'd you go with?
Padres, Cardinals, and I think I took the Braves. I think I took the Braves.
I think people are sleeping on the Braves. I think almost all the national publications I've seen are picking the Mets or the Phillies, which, I mean, Phillies made it to the World Series. Mets were a good team before they spent a bunch of money. The Braves seem to be just getting overlooked. And again, that's a division. I could put those 3 teams in a hat and pick any one of those as my winner and feel confident in it.
The Mets certainly have looked a lot worse in the last couple of weeks because of some injuries they've had. So I kind of knocked them down. But the Braves and Phillies, you could make a case for either one. Of the Phillies had some injuries now too. So, and the Braves lost Raisel Iglesias now for who knows how long. So
nice.
Are you liking who knows?
Are you liking the new schedule or not? That there's the argument that we get to see more teams, but then there's also the argument that the division isn't being decided within the division as much as it historically used to be.
Well, I mean, historically, it used to be more like this. So you used to play your division like 12 times. And then when they made the division smaller, then they made it 19 times. So I think
Yeah.
this is just better for baseball because for a couple reasons. First of all, if you're trying to market the sport, you want fans to see all the players on all the teams, right? So it's
Yes.
ridiculous that Mike Trout should not be in Milwaukee for 6 years. That's just dumb, you know. And also, I think now that we have basically as many teams make the playoffs as wild cards as our division winners, you really need to have more of a fair schedule because if the Angels are competing with the White Sox for a wild card spot, they've got to be playing a more similar schedule to the White Sox. So I just think for those two reasons, it just makes more sense to do it this way.
Yeah, I like both those reasons. There are two teams in New York. The Angels play the Yankees every single year, hardly ever play the Mets, and that's a lot of exposure for Trout and Otani. And it's particularly harder for guys on the West Coast to get national exposure anyway. So yeah, this is kind of more like the NBA did it. When I lived in Sacramento, I knew I would get to see everybody once a year at least, and the division rivals twice. So cool, man. I can let you go because I know that you got a busy day. I appreciate it greatly. Anything else that you want to cover while I got you on here, or should we kind of hold off till we get closer to the All-Star break, which is my way of saying I'm going to ask you to come back on again at the All-Star break?
I would definitely come back on. I'm happy to talk about whatever. Just I appreciate you letting me promote the book because I love for people to buy the book. It's still out there, and I think it's still a good read about Otani. And obviously, Otani's even a bigger deal now than he was when I wrote it. So,
I'm really hoping you're writing a career perspective on Otani about 10 years from now, and he's still wearing an Angels uniform. So,
we'll see.
That would
I
be
give
great.
everybody asks me, what are the chances of the Angels re-signing Otani? And I always, I say 30%, which I think is probably about 28% higher than everybody else in the country.
See, I'm
Anybody
picking it
who's
at a
not,
20. I'm picking
all
it
right,
at
well,
20%. So,
yeah, okay. But I mean, like outside of the Angels world, like if you're in follow any other team, you think it's like 0%. But
oh yeah.
but I do believe there is a chance because I believe that he's comfortable with the Angels. I believe the Angels have enough money, and I believe the Angels do actually have a chance to win. So all those things add up. There is some non-zero chance that he does come back, but still, they do need some stuff to go right for them because a lot has not. So that's kind of the 70% chance of him going somewhere else. But
I'm with
30%
you.
is not nothing. It's not
I
nothing,
mean, there were a lot of reasons that Otani chose to come to the Angels, right?
Right.
Now, in the back of my mind, I think if the DH was in the National League at that time, he probably goes to the Dodgers instead of the Angels at that time, just because of where the franchises were. But a lot of those reasons, the community down here, the direct flights, being on West Coast time is better for his sponsors and stuff back in Japan with as far as when the games are played and stuff like that. I've read there are a lot of the Angels bent over backwards to accommodate his schedule. Again, he's already familiar, and let's not forget, already handed Mike Trout the largest contract in the history of sports. And really, I've done the math. If we're going to give Otani $50 million, that's 20 million more than he's getting paid this year, right? Well, if Luke Murphy and Ben Joyce replace Ryan Tepera and Aaron Loup, there's 15 million of those dollars right there. So, and I think realistically by the end of the year, that's highly likely to happen. Eric Torres replaces, somebody. I mean, there's 15 to 20 million dollars to be saved just by bringing a couple of trash pan of bullpen pieces up here.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to I did a big package of stories back in November, which I think is also since we talked about the Angels farm system and how it got to be so bad and what they're doing to fix it. And I think a lot of people look at the Angels' problems and they say it's because of Arte and because he won't spend enough money, because he didn't sign Garrett Cole or because he did sign Anthony Rendon. And I think all that stuff is not it. I think it's the farm system, and you need to have 12, 13 guys being productive on your team that make no money. And the only way you have that is by having a good farm system. And so that's their hope. I mean, the only way they're going to be good with or without Otani is if their farm system improves. And if it does, yeah. So I think that's the thing that people need to remember. And that's still going to be their hope for being good, regardless of where Otani goes. And, but if they are good, like if by the middle of the season, their farm system looks a lot better, maybe Zach Neto looks like he can come up and be in the big leagues. And then all of a sudden that's, you know, X $1 million you don't have to spend on someone else. And like you mentioned, you know, Ben Joyce and all these things. And if Logan O'Hoppe is established and all these kind of things add up, that's all less money you have to spend. And it's more money you can give to Otani. So that's the kind of thing that definitely would help them. And it's something that people really need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I will say your series on the minor leagues was really good. We linked all of them. They got a lot of discussion on the site. Honestly, I think that was the best series that you've written since I've lived down here, or since you've been down here following the OC Register. I mean, that was really good. It was really in depth, and it was at a time when we actually had the time to read through everything. I think one of the problems
when I had time to write it, so
yeah,
I could not do that during the season. You know,
oh, dude. I mean, even with us trying to keep this site going, there's so much going on during the regular season that there's a lot of times there's a story that I want to get into or get in depth into, and even if I do get in depth into it, then well, the Angels played another game the next day, and you know, it's like how much is it going to get? So, did want to give you kudos for that. I do appreciate you coming on here. I'll link your Twitter. I think there are a handful of people I think Angel fans need to follow on Twitter. I like Jeff's Twitter because it's the facts, just the facts. I like that. I mean, there's a place for hot takes, but give me the facts. And then I'll definitely link the book. I've actually bought 4 copies of it myself for various people. So I can definitely tell you guys it's worth a read. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.